Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in again today. Hey, it's time for us to get some motivation, inspiration, get fired up. That's what we need to do. Hey, we know that life's going to come. We're going to kick it in the teeth, and then what are we going to do? Get up, live the best life possible. Now, that's if you're in the right mindset to do that. Because we know, and I admit this, when I first had my injury, I spent the first 5 years pouting, why me, crying, oh, poor pitiful me. But finally, when I decided to get going, let's get going, and we moved on. It only took me 5 years, though, right? So, but again, some people a little longer. A lot of people are a lot less than that 5 years. So, more power to them with that. So, it's time to persevere. It's time to move on. And our guest today, I'm thrilled to find out this is going to be fun. Okay, he said he was a former youth sports administrator and coach. All right, all of a sudden one day, him and his wife got to calling, sell everything you got, get you an RV, and travel the country. And so that's what they're doing now. And they also got their golden retriever with them. And they don't have the golden retriever name here. So, Dan Clouser, welcome to the show. And now we got to get the wife's name and golden retriever's name.
Thanks for having me, James. The wife's name is Sandy, and the golden name is Euclid. He's named after the Boston Red Sox old third baseman Kevin Euclid. So there's always an explanation when I'm introducing the dog as to how he got that name.
There you go, Boston. There you go. So yeah, I got a black lab. He's my service dog. So he's retired now. He's 14 years old, but he's still the dogs are amazing. So
Yeah, they are.
I love dogs. There's a lot we can learn from them. Definitely learn not to be judgmental. I mean, they don't care who you are. They don't care what you look like. They don't care disabled or not, amputated or not. As long as they get that love, they're going to give that love back. So,
Yep, that's right. And ours is the exact same way. I always tell people all dogs are service dogs. It's just some of them actually get the vest.
There you go.
So
that's right. That's right.
Our guy's 13 and a half years old as well, but I'll tell you what, he's as young as they come, man. He still walks 3 to 5 miles a day, and he's in great shape. So fingers crossed that he's going to have a couple more years with us for sure.
Yeah.
But he is.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to when that day comes.
No, but he's definitely he is. Even though he doesn't have the vest, he's my service
dog right.
as well. That's for sure.
That's right. One man one day I was walking my dog at the Wally World, and one guy come up to him and he says that he knows his dog loves him more than his wife loves him. And he said, you know, I go out there and I take my dog and I put him in the trunk of the car. I come back an hour later, he's wagging his tail, he's licking and kissing me, and he's all excited to see me. He said, but if I put my wife in the trunk of the car and come back an hour later, so
ain't that the truth?
All right, Dan, let's go and get started here, man. So what's it like to, I don't know, get the call in and get out of the rat race and do your own thing? I mean, just to get rid of everything that you accumulated and say, let's start it all over and move and get an RV and go. I would love the traveling aspect, so I'm really interested in this today.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you what, it's an incredible lifestyle to just, see all the amazing beauty that God has given us in this country, and the amazing people that are in this country as well. I know, a lot of times our society, we're very polarized right now in this day and age, but I think if you get out there and you meet people and you talk to them and you get to know them, you find out that we all have a lot more in common than we've different. And that's been the best part of traveling. And, from the dog standpoint, for him, he loves it because every place there's brand new smells and there's new people to meet. He's not a huge fan of other dogs, I got to tell you, but man, he loves people. So anytime he's out there, sniffing and meeting people, he's all for it. But, selling all our stuff, it was incredibly liberating. We lived in our house for 20 years. We just accumulated just so much stuff that we had literally no use for anymore. And I thought it would actually be a little bit more difficult, um, but it really was liberating to get rid of that, and to downsize from a 3,500 square foot house to a roughly just on 300 square foot RV. And everything we own is right there with us, goes everywhere that we go. We do have a couple storage bins at our one daughter's house, which actually every time we get back there, we kind of downsize those a little bit more. And most of those are actually family thefts more than anything, and just some seasonal clothes, which those are the things that, every time we get back to visit, we'll kind of get rid of two more, three more pieces of things, say, what, we probably won't need this down the road, so let's get rid of it. But it was incredibly, liberating for us to do it. And, um, as we were in the process of doing this is when the pandemic hit, and, kind of fitting to, the show title of Perseverance, we knew it was still the right thing to do. I mean, we were sitting in the RV dealership the day the governor of Pennsylvania was issuing shutdown orders. And, we had this plan to sell our house and then, use the pro of that to buy an RV and then kind of hit the road. So the house was listed. We were actually talking to our real estate agent about taking the house off the market because it's, slowing down, and we didn't want it to look like an old listing. And yet, we sat there knowing that we're now going to have a payment and a mortgage payment together, at least for some unknown amount of time at this point. But yet it still felt so right to just kind of keep moving forward and keep taking the steps that we needed to take. And a few months later, the real estate market opened up again, and we had 4 showings on our house, and it was, we had a sales agreement. And then it was about a 90-day, not quite a 90-day settlement time frame for us, but mid-August of 2020, we hit the road and haven't looked back, and have loved every minute of it. But I think it does, it's very fitting that even with, there's obstacles and a lot of unknowns at that time in the world, we were still focused on, what we wanted to do, and hit the road and kind of start this new chapter for us.
All right. Yeah, well, it sounds incredible. I have a couple of things I want to go back to. First thing, you did say perseverance, so hold on. Let me get you a fist bump. So, and then also, I actually do have a friend that he's put his house on the market this week, that he wants to do the exact same thing, to get an RV and travel. And so I told him, said, Mike, get in and listen in today, man. So hopefully he's popping in somewhere sometime. But he's actually wants to do the same thing and travel. And third thing, I've said this before. Oh, I don't know if I've said it much on here, but I've talked to other friends. I said, it's amazing we accumulate all this junk, all our lives, because it's so important to us. We got to hang on to it, you know. And I said, one day, when you die, people ain't even going to look through and care why you kept it. They're just going to throw it in the trash. If they see something that's interesting, they can make $4 off of it, they'll keep it. But there'll be a letter or some memorabilia that means nothing but you. It's out of here. And so it's amazing the stuff we collect, because it just meant something to us. So, but I mean, so for you to
Yeah.
downsize like you're doing, you and your wife, uh, yeah, that's a lot of work, a lot of commitment, a lot of giving in, and a lot of acceptance. So it's a lot of perseverance. There we go. And so to do that, that I mean that could be a story of its own. Just downsizing and how to choose and pick what stays and goes.
Yeah, it sure can. And, like you said, after a while, you wonder, we were finding stuff that we hadn't seen or touched in, years. And we're like, wow, I thought we got rid of this 10 years ago.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And it's just, we tell our kids all the time, we're like, look, man, we did you guys a huge favor by doing this ahead of time, because like you said, when we're gone, it's somebody else's problem at that point to sort through it, and most of the time it's going to end up in the dumpster at that point. So we took care of that for him. And I had we had a finished basement, which was kind of like my man cave.
Mm-hmm.
I had all kinds of sports memorabilia down there, signed baseballs and signed photos and stuff
Hey, send those to me.
like that. And I thought that would be the most difficult part of what I was getting rid of,
Uh-huh.
and it really came to a point where it's like, you know what, I use out of them. I appreciated them for all this time, and now it's time for somebody else to appreciate them. So, when I was selling that stuff and seeing the reactions of other people's faces as they were buying it, and knowing that it was going to be appreciated, even more someone else, was kind of a, again, kind of a liberating feeling that, someone else could appreciate something that I had, had value of for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, now I'm going to throw you a little loop. Now I live in Tennessee. I'm outside of Nashville, but I do have me a Carlton Fist signed bat over here. So I got it in an auction. So
Nice. Carlton Fisk was one of my favorite players growing up. My brother and his soccer teammates nicknamed me Pudge as I was growing up,
yeah,
because I was a little pudgy, and I caught a little bit, and I was a Red Sox fan, so it kind of fit. So he was always, it broke my heart when he went to the White Sox, but I was glad to see Boston embrace him again after his career ended. That was a terrible move by the Red Sox to let him go when
oh,
they did, but that's beside the point. He
yeah, I hear
he
you.
persevered and proved to them that he would still have an incredible
That
career
he still had,
after
yeah,
they, because
still had a couple of good years left. Yeah.
they sure did. They thought he was washed up, and I think he actually went on and played more games with the White Sox than with the Red Sox till it was all said and done. So
Oh, okay.
he
Yeah,
persevered and proved them wrong for sure.
that's right. That's right. All right.
So
So now you're getting you're downsizing. You spotted the right RV to go after, and I mean, and of course this could be a small show of its own, going from at least say 3,500 square feet to 300. So that means you and the wife are bumping into each other more often than you're definitely have been used to.
yes, yeah. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in the man cave when we were in the house. And I also, with the organization I ran, I mean, I worked 80, 90 hours a week. So it really went from, you know, seeing each other a relatively limited amount of time when we lived in a regular house to being with each other pretty much 24/7. And
Hmm.
a lot of people, have asked us, man, how did you make that work? And I think it just proved, how strong our love was for each other, and we've really become closer, both physically
Uh huh. Uh huh.
and spiritually and emotionally have become closer throughout this journey. So it was really it was a blessing
I
all the
would,
way around. And
yeah, I would think that would be tough at the beginning again, because you had so much room to be by yourself and have your own time alone. Not that you can't have your own time alone in a 300 place, but um, yeah, but you're having to learn more tolerance, more patience, more understanding, more learning to get out of the way and leave them alone, and yeah, so a lot of that had to take place.
yeah, and I think the pandemic and the lockdown were kind of a test run for us, and we would
Hmm.
say that a lot of times when we were, it was just the two of us in the house. Now, granted, we had some space, and if we needed to,
Yeah.
to get apart, we certainly had room in the house to do that. But we would joke all the time about, this is God's way of seeing if we're really going to be able to last in an RV together all the time. And I think that the pandemic actually helped us, kind of acclimated to being around each other
Y'all could have really had
as
a
much as
test
what we are
run.
now.
You could have really had a test run if y'all like lived in your living room only.
Nothing else off.
Yeah, except for bathroom purposes. But
Right.
bring a microwave or a small stove in there, and y'all just live. Y'all really could have had a test run then, right? Wow. But yeah, that's a great way to look at it. You're going, we had, anybody asks, you go, Yeah, God gave us a test run. He gave us to COVID. Not us to COVID, but the
Yeah.
pandemic. And we had a
Yeah.
test run to see if we really can withstand each other in smaller spaces. And it's look what's come out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been great. And the funny thing, a lot of people ask us as well, like, were you guys campers? Did you own an RV before? Did you, travel by RV? And the answer to that, no. The first time I ever drove an RV was that day when Pennsylvania was issuing the shutdown orders, and I drove our RV off the lot back to the house and knew nothing about what I was getting into. So did a lot of watching YouTube and reading up on stuff to really understand the lifestyle, and it all worked out, and it just it was kind of like taking that leap of faith and knowing that it would all come together when it needed to.
Yeah. Now, what's we'll say a typical day first, then maybe a typical week where you go out and meet more people speaking. I see you're a speaker, and so what's like a typical day and week for y'all?
I think the beauty of our lifestyle is there really is no typical day. Every
Okay.
day and every week is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right now we're actually stationary. I told you before we record, and we're back in Pennsylvania. We're actually staying at our niece and nephew's house. So this is not an RV backdrop behind me right now, um, and we're here to help my mother-in-law with some stuff. She's transitioning from one nursing home to another, so we'll be here in Pennsylvania for probably another month or so to get her sorted out. But I think the beauty of this lifestyle is there really is no typical day. We do a lot of volunteering as well. We've actually done volunteering in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, in Roan Mountain State Park,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we those are probably our most fulfilling times when we're able to give back. I mean, I come from a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit organization. My wife, even though she didn't work in a nonprofit, was involved in other nonprofits in addition to the one that I had run. So we've always had that kind of volunteerism in our blood. So to be able to continue to travel and still continue to give back has been, a really important piece of our, giving us purpose to this new journey. But I'll just kind of recap maybe like the last month to give you an
Mm-hmm.
idea of what
Okay.
might have
Good.
been
Yeah, that'd be
typical.
good. Yeah.
So we were we were in Pennsylvania for bulk of the summer, and ended up heading out to Wisconsin for a volunteer project. So we left on Labor Day and kind of mapped out our journey till we got to Antigo, Wisconsin. Stayed at a state park in Michigan for 2 days. Stayed at what they call harvest hosts, which are a lot of like farms or businesses where you can stay. And we went up through the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and back into Antigo, and we're 2 weeks on this volunteer project at a raptor sanctuary. So a typical day there was getting up early, walking the dog for a couple miles, getting back and being at the project by about 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd work from about 9 to 3:30, 4 o'clock, depending. Um, we'd get back, spend some time with the other volunteers, shower up and eat dinner and get ready for the next day. Um, and in between that, I'm finding time to edit podcasts and schedule additional podcasts for when I knew we weren't going to be traveling once we got October. Um, and then just kind of kept that cycle for 2 weeks. And then on the way back, we had our stops planned, again, going up through the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and staying at, again, these things they call harvest hosts, which again can be a farm, can be a you know uh, a honey place, it can be a horse farm, it can be a farmer's market, you name it. It's
Mm-hmm.
very cool because it's something you wouldn't normally stay at, so it's a little bit different experience. And then we came across Pennsylvania. Um, our typical driving day when we're traveling is usually about 3 to 4 hours. About, we try not to go more than 200 miles. But there were some days in that trip where we would stretch it out and get close to 300 miles. But just because we knew we to get into New Jersey for the beginning of October, I was doing a 20-mile hike in New Jersey, part of an event called Mammoth March. So
Okay.
got into Jersey, did the hike, and then we went up to see our grandson play baseball. He's in his freshman year of Hudson Valley Community College in Troy, New York. So we got to go up and see him play a little bit of fall baseball, spent some time with him, took him to breakfast and lunch, and just were able to spend some quality time with him before getting back here to Pennsylvania. And now on a day when we're not, knowing that we're not going to be traveling here for a while, it's kind of when I get caught up on my podcasts and getting stuff scheduled and editing and guesting on podcasts like this and all that fun stuff. So I kind of it's balance of knowing when we're going to travel, when I can work in um, you know hosting guests and being guests on shows, and trying to get caught up on my writing and stuff. So it's always kind of a constant balancing act, but there's definitely no such thing as a typical day in our
Oh,
lives
well,
right
okay.
now.
Okay. Well, I mean, that could be good. Every day's a refreshing start, new start,
Yes.
basically. So that's great.
Yes.
Hey, so you mentioned your podcast a few times. Go ahead and tell what's your podcast name and what is your topic.
Yeah. So the title of the podcast is The Journey of My Mother's Son. And my topic is really just telling the stories of people we meet, whether it's in person. Do a lot of in-person podcasts yet on the road, and then also through Podmatch, like the way you and I
Hmm.
connected, reaching out and telling those stories. And that the title is inspired, obviously by my mom. She had taken an old 1967 Plymouth Valiant in the mid 80s and converted it to a makeshift RV. She took the back seat out of it, put a sheet in there and a
Yeah.
mattress, and just traveled around the country and did a lot of volunteer work like we're doing. Um,
Well, that's
Caught up with
amazing.
friends and family. Yeah, it was amazing, and um, it was one of those things where I never really thought that I would be doing this. But what made me want to continue podcasting. I podcasted for our organization for several years prior to doing this, but as we were starting to turn this new chapter, I wanted to continue podcasting because I love telling those stories. And I was just thinking back that had my mom, had a platform like we have today with social media and podcasting and that sort of stuff, how cool it would have been for her to tell the stories of the people she met and some of her experiences whilst traveling
Yeah.
in real time, as opposed to, after she passed away, we were reading through her journals and, kind of living this adventure with her, years and years after it had happened. And I was like, man, it would be so cool for people to kind of follow along with us virtually and, adventure with us while we're doing it. That's why I started the podcast. And I just love, telling the stories of people. I think every person has a unique story. And I think all those stories can be incredibly inspirational if you give them the time and the platform to tell it.
Yeah, I believe everybody should write a book, even if it's only your memoir. And just because your book can be handed down to your great grandkids when you're gone, for them to see what you went through and overcome, what of you was able to help other people in life. And so I believe, and not everybody's going to sadly do it. And I wouldn't have wrote my memoir, if I wouldn't had my accident put in a wheelchair. So I know I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But putting into the situation, yeah, that's why I wrote that one. But yeah, I think everybody should. I wish I would at least had a cassette tapes and stuff tape when I was younger, 12, 13 years old, my grandfather and grandmother telling their stories. You know, I'm getting the second hand from what my mom would tell me things. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing what they went through for us to have a better life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, with the podcasting platform and, you wrote a book and I've published a couple books myself. I think that's one of the things that really, you hit the nail on the head where that kind of turns into our legacy, and I'll tell you what, the times now where I wish I could find something, just anything to hear my mother's voice again, or to hear my grandfather's voice again, or my grandmother's voice again, or some of my aunts and uncles that have gone on. I would give anything to do that. And what you and I are doing is we are doing that. We're creating that legacy that years after we're gone, our kids and our grandkids and our great grandkids who may never have met us in the flesh will be able to, crank onto the internet and pull up
Yes.
an old cast and hear our voice and hear our stories from our mouth, not from someone else's mouth. So I
Yeah.
think
Yes. Yes.
we're doing a great justice to our family to be able to leave that legacy for them to, pull up some of those old memories.
And you mentioned earlier that I used to be a school teacher for a while, and it seemed like you had what that 7 or 10% of kids they required 85% of your attention.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned a minute ago or earlier today on the show was majority of people you meet are real good people. But what do we see
Yeah,
in
they
the
are.
news? The 8 or 10% that's getting all the attention with all the negative stuff, and all the
Yeah.
great things that's going out there is being ignored. So I
Yep.
agree with you too. There's a lot more, even though the world right now seems bad. That's because that's what they're portraying in the news. Uh,
Yep.
it's really still a good to great place to
Yeah.
be.
No, I agree. I agree. And you got to take the time, to find those good people and to look for the good in people. And, we've been able to, witness it and see it and, sit down and talk with people who might not look like us, very possibly don't have the same political beliefs as
Hmm.
us, and can have just a great conversation over good food or music or just sitting out in a campground by a fire, and it's so special. And again, I think if you're looking for the good in people, you're going to find it. By the same token, if you're looking for the bad in people,
Exactly.
you'll find that as well.
Exactly.
So what
Uh,
do you want to look for?
so you've been doing this for over 2 years now, and so have you found other couples that basically had the same idea that they're going to just travel and get out of the rat race, you said, and just do the same thing? And yeah, have you found other people with the same idea?
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of the number is mind blowing. There's actually 1.5 million people in the United States that live full time in an RV.
Wow, I wouldn't have thought that.
When I first heard that number, yeah, it blew me away. If you would have told me like 300,000 or 200,000, I'd have thought, oh, that makes sense. 1.5 million is incredible,
Yeah.
and
Well, I told you
it's one of the
earlier that I was just saying, that I told you earlier, friend of mine, Mike, he said he's told me 4 weeks ago that he was planning on this was his plan, and so yeah, they're supposed to be putting the house up this week in the market, and he said they're ready to go. They're ready to go look for the RV and ready to go. Him and the wife is.
I,
So
I welcome him into the fold. I want to tell him don't buy an RV that was manufactured between 20 and 2022. Buy something older than that, because that was before all the supply chain issues and labor issues were kind of out of hand. So if
okay,
you listen to
okay,
this,
that's good advice.
go older,
Yeah,
and just embrace it. And that's the coolest thing about the volunteer projects that we do. Really, about 90% of those volunteer projects are with other full-time RVers. There's a handful that will just are retired and will just go out for a month or so and go back to their regular house, but the majority are full-time RVers. So yeah, it's to be able to work with people like that, like-minded people, and again from all walks of life. Retired military. There's two retired NASA engineers that we do a lot of projects with, and retired general contractors and school teachers and firemen and police officers and like just every walk of life, which again shows you that there isn't like this cookie cutter mold of people who can, you know, sell
yeah.
everything and live in an
Hmm.
RV. Like it literally every walk of life can do this if you make the decision to do it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
welcome your friend to the fold for sure, and maybe we'll run into him down the road somewhere.
All right. And so when you go, you and Sandy go and you're doing the volunteer stuff, going somewhere else, so you might meet other people that you've been in other projects with. Not to say y'all hit
Yes. Yeah.
every time you go somewhere. Not to say you hit them every time, but you still meet up with other people you've already worked with before. Because again, you like I said, like-minded people.
Yep. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the project that we just finished in Wisconsin, it was a smaller project, so there were only 19 volunteers. Normally, it's about 32. But we had actually worked with every other person in that project, with the exception of one couple. So yeah, there are a lot of repeats, and you get to see a lot of the same faces, but you always see new faces as well. And
Hmm.
again, to hear their stories and understand why. And I've had the opportunity to have many of those people on my podcast and talking about, what led them to their journey of,
Yes.
wanting to go full time and get out of the rat race. And, it's really interesting to hear all the different stories of what led each of us to do what we're doing. But there's always just kind of that common thread of, we were tired of doing what society was always telling us to do,
Yep. 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 Yep.
have the
So.
big house, have the big yacht, and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I'll give you the big applause and everything that y'all took that leap of faith and has found it rewarding for you. So I would like to. I don't know if I want to sell everything and get to an RV, but I would like to rent an RV to go travel around for a while, just so I can see the other stuff out there. So, I mean, seeing it on the internet is still different than seeing it personal. So, yeah,
Yes, it is.
from there. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
So I
well,
highly recommend you do it, James. Absolutely highly recommend that you do it.
all right, appreciate that. So, all right, Dan. Hey, I appreciate this. Has been again for me. It's been enlightening because I have been thinking about the traveling more, yeah, but to me, it's been good. So, all right, hey, Mike. I hope you hopped in a few little bit there and listened to Dan. And Dan, if you hadn't, I'm going to make him come back and listen to it. So, and so get some advice here. So, all right, Dan. Hey, will you tell people your websites or social media, maybe your books, and mention your podcast again.
Yeah. So everything can be found on my website, which is journeyofmymotherson.com or danclouser.com. Both URLs go to the exact same site, and all the links you need are there to the podcast, which is available, Apple, Spotify, everywhere podcasts are found. Links to my books are there. And if anybody wants to engage me for a speaking engagement, all that information is on the website as well. So, truly go to my website. You can find, pretty much anything out about me that you need to know. And it's journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com.
All right, thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. And let's go ahead and finish this up here. We know the people are hurting and struggling today, and if you could leave us with a positive comment, positive statement to help them get through today, that'd be a blessing, man.
Yeah, I think it goes back to something I said in a podcast, and that's just go out and talk to people. Talk to people that don't look like you. Talk to people where you may have this stereotypical, you know, prejudgment of what they might be like, but then sit down and actually have a conversation. I think you're going to find out they're a lot more like you than what you initially thought. So I think the positive thought is just go out into the world, meet people, talk to people, and find the good in the world, because there's a lot of it out there.
They say leave your footprint, but here in your case, you're leaving your RV print behind. So,
Yep.
all right. Thank you, Dan, for being on. Hey, everybody else, I'm Dr. James Purdue. Hey, be sure to share this out. Somebody you know that may be interested in some traveling as well, want to get their RV. You know what they say? You know what they said? Clark, that right there is what you call an RV. Dan and I talked about being one of our favorite movies, Christmas Vacation. All right, so for everybody else, be sure to share us out. Hey, I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.